You don't have that cascading effect. And there's room for leisure because tasks don't take so long. Does that make sense? Is everybody kind of tracking with me? Okay, you can put the businesses, the next. Okay, so there's our businesses. You see, they just, they look a little bit different, right? We do have a golf course in Detroit. I haven't been on it yet, but I hear it's pretty good, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, you don't really see vet clinics in the city, right? They're just not there, right? So our businesses look different, our social services look different, our lives look different. As a result, our thinking is different. Okay, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on wealth. The only reason I'd like to cover wealth at all is sometimes people who sit in these type of trainings might be on a board. So if you're on a board, you're usually trying to raise money. And the people who like to give money usually are wealthy people. So very briefly on this, I want to point out that in wealth, the driving force is connections. And what I mean by that is social connections. So social connections are very important. That drives decisions in wealth. In wealth, you have a very stable environment. Today and tomorrow are covered. So actually in wealth, you're thinking generationally. And the reason I say that to you is if you're ever in a position to be fundraising with someone from wealth, you always want to talk about generational changes. Okay, so they want to affect the future out decades. They're not thinking about retirement. They're thinking generational change. So I do a lot of work with Young Lives, and one of the things that I do there is advise them on how to get donors to give money. And the big thing is, Young Lives is great. It's teen moms. If those of you who don't know, we work with teen moms. We're talking about effecting generational change. And that will make a wealthy person go in their pocket because they want to effect change generationally. So put that in your back pocket. You might need that sometime. Okay, so that's the mental models that we talked about. I'm just going to drill down on one aspect of the mental model for poverty, and that's the floor plan. So I just want to ask you guys a question. If this floor plan, so this is like a 2-bedroom house, okay? In middle class, how many people live here?
4.
In middle class, 4 people?
Wait, no. One.
1 or 2. I mean, honestly, right? In middle class, 1 or 2 people live there. In poverty, how many people live there?
4.
In poverty in the United States, how many people live there?
4 to 6.
4 to 6. In poverty internationally, in the majority world, how many people live there? Yeah, at least. Yeah. When I went with Northridge to Mumbai, to the slums there, we were in Dharavi, which is the largest slum in Asia. It's a mile wide by a mile long, and over 1 million people live there. I had the amazing privilege, I still, it's surreal. I had the amazing privilege of preaching in a cell church in Dharavi. 13 people lived in that one room. It was probably no more than 10 feet by 8 feet, and they took turns sleeping on the floor. Okay, so this looks very different depending on the environment that it's in. So if you think about this, let's go back to American poverty now. You got 4 to 6 people living in here. What does that look like as far as a child in school trying to do homework? How would a child in school trying to do homework in middle class and a child in school in poverty doing homework look different in those 2 environments?
No quiet.
Quiet?
They would have eaten well.
Right. What about like a dedicated space to do homework? So my kids, even though I have 4 kids, I had a 4-bedroom house. 2 of them had to share. My 2 adopted girls shared. And then I had biological twins. They each had their own room, and my husband and I shared a room. But there were 2 tables, right? We had a kitchen table and we had a dining room table. So the dining room table tended to be used for homework, and the kids usually had a desk or someplace in their room. So they actually had options. I have girls that I mentor that live in poverty, that live in these type of spaces with 6 to 8 people. They do their homework in the bathtub. And they do their homework in the bathtub, and I'm not kidding you, because it's the only place they don't get interrupted. Now, people will come in and use the bathroom. They will use the toilet, but they draw the curtain and they don't get interrupted. So just something as simple as a child doing homework looks very different. Okay. So I have a couple quotes in here. The need to act overwhelms any willingness people have to learn. And the healthier you are psychologically, or less you may seem to need to change, the more you can change. So this is my takeaway from this. People in poverty are solving concrete problems all the time, and they don't have the time or the energy for abstract or new learning because they're so present focused, they're survival mode, just trying to get through the moment. I mentioned I'm doing research right now with women in Detroit, and they are so engaged in unhealthy relationships with, they have 5 kids with 4 different men, and think about, okay, if you're married, like just how hard that is, right, in managing kids. They've got 4 different parental relationships with 4 different men and 5 different children, and not only that, the mamas of all those men and the sisters of all those, their emotional lives are so complicated, and I'm not saying right or wrong, I'm just saying reality. Their emotional lives are so complicated, they don't have the energy to figure out how to get a GED. They just can't do it. So that's something to keep in mind in how their thought process works. Yep.
So in your opinion, why is that?
Oh, that's a whole, I can't go there and get through this material. I'm writing my thesis on that right now. If you want to send me your email, I'll send you my thesis that answers that. But I can't do it here.
Okay.
Sorry.
I mean, that kind of gets into the heart of personal choices too, and how you break that.
You know, we're going to talk about personal choices, so hang tight with that thought, okay? Okay, so what I would like you guys to do, can we go to the one that says learning task number 2, please? I would like you guys to think about this. You have paper there. I'm just going to give you a minute or two. Create a list in your own mind. Be honest, please, because this is for you, not for me. Be honest. What do you think causes poverty in the United States? Just take a minute and write down. I'll ask for a couple people to share, but you don't have to share. But just be honest. What do you personally think causes poverty? Write a couple things down. Take a minute. Okay, who's going to be brave for me? Yes, sir.
Well, I have 2. I'm going to say government and the parents. Let me explain both. The government, they actually will pay you if you have kids, like you were talking about. They, basically you get a free check.
Yep.
And
if you're married, you don't get the government assistance. If you're not married and you have
right.
children, you do. Okay.
And yes, and parents, I teach different things at my company, and one of the things is a lot of times they'll put their kids in a box. You'll never be successful because, and in truth, the parents were put in that box themselves. An example of the government. A couple years ago, I was in line to get an ice cream cone, and there's 2 ladies behind me, and the one girl started telling the other lady, "Oh, you don't want to do that. You'll make more money from the government if you do it this way."
Yeah, sure.
And I'm
that
thinking,
happens. That's real.
And I was upset because I own a company and I pay for that.
Right.
And I go to work every single day and bust my butt to do stuff, and they want to take advantage of the whole thing, which is upsetting.
Yeah, I could tell stories around that, but we don't have time.
Yes.
So, okay, a couple other quick things over here.
Drug addiction.
Drug addiction. Excellent. Who else?
Enablers.
Enablers?
I have a mother that has enabled my sister.
Codependency. Codependency is a good one.
That's what I had. I had segregation.
Segregation.
Number 1.
Okay. Just popcorn out a couple more quick ones for me.
Location.
Sorry?
Location.
Location? Yeah. I like that one. We'll talk about that one.
Family structure.
Family structure, yeah. When I do mentor training or camp counselor training, I take almost a whole hour and talk about family structure. That's actually my area of research. You guys don't get that tonight. You're really missing out. Sorry about that. Okay, I'll share mine quickly. When I first started mentoring, I thought absent fathers, breakdown of the family unit. That was it. If that was fixed, everything else would be fixed. I was sure of it. Also, poor educational opportunities. Just the state of our public schools in the inner cities. I mean, if you have not been in those buildings and seen rusted closed windows, where I work, I teach some classes at a community development center through CDC, and for at least the last year there has been an extension cord, because there's only one power outlet in the entire building that works. And there has been an extension cord up 4 flights of stairs up to the room that I teach in. And kids are up and down those stairs all the time. The windows are rusted shut, painted, I'm sure it's lead, paint all over the place. It's just filthy dirty all the time, right? I love coming to this building. I really, I'm like, oh, it's clean. I forget what a clean building's like. Like, to teach in a clean building's awesome, but that's a whole other thing. I'm getting off on a tangent, sorry. Okay, now that I live in the city of Detroit, I see other things. I see, when I walk home from the gym, I go to the gym about a half a mile from my house, and I have to be very careful not to leave at night after it gets dark because the street lights are not on. Okay, so street lights not being on, that never happened to me in Northville. Street lights were always on. The M1 that we talked about. So I see things differently now that I live there. Charlie Ledoff, do you guys know who he is? He's one of the, yeah. He says, Detroit is a third world country, except we don't have goats in the street. Now, I don't know if I totally agree with that, but I get his point. So let's talk about what does cause poverty. The research continuum. So these are the way that social scientists look at poverty. Okay, and so they're trying to figure out what causes poverty. And if I can use the word lens again, there's 4 different lenses that social scientists will look at to study poverty and study the causes of poverty. And the reason that it is important is, depending on what you think causes it, that will affect what you do to try to fix it. So your mindset and what causes it is a huge determiner in what you do to fix it. So there's 4 areas of research. The first is